welcome back to another episode of Detroit's Finest Podcast. I'm your host, Mackenzie, here with my co-host,
Kevon.
And today we're here with CW, aka Councilwoman Latisha Johnson.
Yeah.
So, in doing our background research, we found that you founded a company, a development company called MUYA. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. MUYA Development Corporation, MUYA, M-E-C-C-A, actually stands for Morningside, East English Village, and Cornerstone Village Community Advocates. It was essentially rooted in community, a nonprofit organization that came out of my service and volunteer work when I was on the board of East English Village Neighborhood Association. So I served as the vice president for about 8 years before starting MUYA. The reason that I wanted to start MUYA is because as a neighbor in the community, I always felt like we were punitive towards our neighbors, telling them everything that they could not do. So it was, you can't play basketball in the street. Your trash can sitting out too long, this, that, or whatever. And so I created MUYA to be supportive of our neighbors and really to focus on helping to uplift and to build our neighbors and to support them.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the city needs that.
Yeah. So, what influenced you to pursue a political career?
So actually, when I started MUYA Development Corporation, I volunteered the entire time. So I was running it for about 8 years. We had 4 areas of focus, and we really were looking to support our youth, our seniors. We did workforce development and housing development. And one of the things that I realized was hindering the organization was just not having a connection to City Hall, and City Hall just not really knowing the work that I was doing on the ground in community, which would have helped to connect me with the philanthropic community that provides support to nonprofit organizations to help us to do more work, to do greater work in community. And because I saw that void, I felt that someone who had been on the ground in community needed to be there in City Hall to help make that connection with our nonprofit organizations.
Yeah. Okay. So, a lot of times I feel like even being here in the youth council, I feel like a lot of times when it comes to politics, people tend to mainly focus on, the struggles that Black men face in politics, but as a female woman in leadership, how do you overcome some of those stereotypes per se, or obstacles?
I don't necessarily view things that way. I mean, I know how people view us, especially as Black women. Honestly, I'm going to tell you, I think people are threatened by us. That's the challenge. Because I do think that Black women are very educated, are becoming more and more educated, that we are just natural leaders. And I think some people are threatened by that, honestly. But I utilize my position to help empower all of our people. Particularly for me, just recognizing and empathizing with people that are growing up in the city of Detroit that don't have access to a lot, not having a lot of money, not being able to perhaps to take your kids to school as opposed to them having to catch the bus because you have a job or 2 jobs that you have to maintain. So really wanting to focus on creating a pathway for Detroiters to be able to either become upwardly mobile or to be more financially stable than they are now, because I grew up in a household, I had 7 siblings, and so it was pretty difficult for us. But during that time, I didn't recognize that we were poor, that we didn't have a lot, because I felt like I got everything that I want to make sure that I'm rooted in addressing the issues within the district.
So, growing up, did you feel like this was what you were always going to do, doing stuff and working?
Absolutely not. So I grew up on the east side. I was indicating that I graduated from Kettering High School, which is now closed, on I-94 in Van Dyke. But when I was growing up, initially, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. We had an Air Force recruiter that used to come to our high school very frequently. And I almost joined the Air Force. I had actually taken the test. I was going to be a radar technician. I had taken my physical. I was ready to go.
One step away.
I had actually signed, I think I had been sworn in too, but there was a second swearing in session that was to take place, and then I wouldn't have been able to retract it. But I ended up getting a scholarship to go to Michigan. And so I went to Michigan, and my initial major was chemical engineering. And that really came out of being involved in a program. So in middle school, I was involved in DAPSEP. When I went to Kettering, I was involved in a program called the Program in Scholarly Research at Michigan. So I worked with a chemistry professor and a chemical engineering professor. And shortly after I started school, I said, I don't think I want to work in a laboratory the rest of my life. But I could have discovered the cure for COVID. Right? So I didn't do it. And I kind of regret not doing it, honestly, because a lot of people say that an engineering degree can open up a multitude of doors for you, right? But I ended up changing my major to finance. So I have a finance degree. Ultimately, I wanted to be a financial analyst in New York on Wall Street.
Why New York specifically, Wall Street?
That's the place to be as a financial analyst, really in finance. And so, like, if you're anybody, you are in New York on Wall Street, doing your thing. And so, when I got my degree, I was already working. I was working for the Convention and Visitors Bureau here in Detroit, and decided that I didn't want to leave. I just wanted to stay here. I was promoting Detroit to conventions, to come to Detroit to really help stabilize our economy here, because most people don't realize that a lot of our residents work in the hospitality industry, for a restaurant, for a museum, different things within the hospitality industry. And so stayed here, did that, ended up working at the Marriott in the Renaissance Center doing sales, and then I retired. I retired from full-time employment, and that's when I started MECA. I started MECA. I did that as a volunteer for 8 years, and I had never worked harder a day in my life until the nonprofit organization, and it was, that transition into political office.
So, I know you ran for office in 2017 and 18, I believe it was?
Yes, I did, technically.
How did you overcome, those losses? What made you continue to pursue going into?
So in 2017, I ran for city council. At the time, I was running against the council person who was in office, who had been in office for 8 years. And it was, again, really because I wanted to see more support, more engagement, more connectivity to the community organizations. I actually got 42% of the vote against someone who'd been in office for 8 years. So I thought that was really good too. And I thought, to me, that said the community wanted change. They wanted to see something different. And I'm not a politician. I have been around elected officials before, and I actually had someone kind of coaching me through the process. So in 2018, the state rep position was open. I really had no desire to go to Lansing, to drive to Lansing every day. But when you think about elected officials, and a lot of people recognize that it takes sometimes for people to see your name on the ballot multiple times before you are actually successful. So that 2018 race, it was an open race. There was no incumbent, and there were 7 or 8 people that were in the race. And when that happens, it's anybody's guess as to who's going to win. And the current state rep is the person who won. And it was really because they spent a lot of their time in Grosse Pointe rallying votes in the Grosse Pointe area. And so it happened that way. So in 2021, when I ran for my current position, it was an open seat because of a situation that happened with my predecessor. And there were 7 people in the race again. So it was anybody's guess.
Yeah.
But because of my time in community, doing community work, connecting with other community leaders throughout the district, and the fact that people had seen my name on the ballot previously, is, I think, what helped me to be successful. But I also made sure that everyone who asked me to run this time, that they went and talked to people that they knew and shared with people the work that I had done. I didn't say what to share because I had done a number of different things with different entities, and I was amazed because a lot of times I would knock on doors and people would say, oh, we were just talking about you, or somebody just told me about you. And so I said, okay, I really appreciated that, because my run in 2017, if you think about it, I was volunteering with Mecca. So I had to turn to my husband and say, hey, I need some money for this campaign. And running a campaign is very costly.
Yeah.
And I was hesitant, honestly, to run in 2021 because I had still been volunteering. So I would have had to turn to my husband and say again, the community is asking me to run for this position. How are we gonna finance it? Thankfully, the community stepped up and helped to support the campaign financially.
I love your commitment and dedication to our to where we live at, our community, especially being from the east side. That's where I'm from. I grew up. I just want to know, like, what keeps you going? What fuels your fire for our community?
What fuels my fire is I've always been a good student, right? And so I try to learn as much as I can, because one of the things I've always noticed is that the east side gets the last of everything.
Right.
Doesn't get the same thing that the other communities receive, especially on the west side. Now, I recognize that the east side is a little bit smaller than the west side, but we're still wanting the same amenities, right? And we're deserving of it. And so I really pride myself on connecting our residents to the resources that the city has available. And I make sure that we keep the east side as a part of our conversation. So it's really about connecting our residents and people expressing appreciation for that connectivity, access to resources, and all of that.
Thank you. Coming from the heart, certainly.
Yeah, it's really nice to have people who represent us who are actually like involved and care. Because a lot of times I feel like, or not even necessarily feel like, because I'm gonna be honest, I don't know much about like your line of work, but we hear that we hear like kind of like what you said, we get the last, and that there's nobody really looking out for us, and we just have to think for ourselves. But you being here is educating us that there are people who care and that there are people who want us to get better. So for our final question,
what's a lesson you learned throughout life?
The lesson that I have learned throughout life is primarily just making sure that we continue to uplift one another. I tell people all the time that I may not know how to do something, but I know that I want to do it. Somebody around me knows how to do it, right? And so we need to make sure that we continue the village work. So when I graduated from Kettering High School, I am number 5 in line of my siblings and I. When I graduated from Michigan, I was the first to graduate from college. And it was really because of my chemistry teacher at Kettering. She introduced me to the program at U of M. She made sure that I continued along the pathway for me to be successful. And she really opened up my eyes to what was possible, where I think a lot of times if we grow up where we have limited access to resources, we don't necessarily know what's possible. And it would be great if someone around us connected us with those opportunities.
My mom says that all the time. She's on my head about it a lot. Like, just to meet people, you know? And, cause I don't know what I want to do either. I don't know what I want to do, but she always gets on my head about going around, just seeing different things, no matter what it is, technology, science, just to get out there so I can have somebody to look at.
It's important to explore. My son is 21, and I'm going through that with him right now, trying to figure out what he wants to do, because he did not explore a lot. He was a basketball star at St. Clair Montefalco, and then his senior year in high school, his knee slipped, and he had to have surgery. And he's not thought about basketball since. And I've always said, you know, have a plan B. Have a plan B. But I wish he had explored more, because it really helps you to understand what resonates with you and what you want to do for the rest of your life that you'll enjoy doing. You want to enjoy doing the work that you do, otherwise it's painstakingly difficult. So explore as much as you possibly can. I would encourage you to get signed up with Grow Detroit's Young Talent, the internship programs that the city of Detroit has. So
we
you can
actually do that over the summer.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, very good. Good. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Hi everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Detroit's Finest Podcast. So sorry. Okay.
We're starting?
Yeah.
Wait, hey, stop and start the cameras.